Hi everyone! 2 weeks ago you were learning all about algebra! And last week we were learning about
bracket.
And today we're learning about
Coordinate.
coordinates. Yeah, that's right. And this is the aiming higher version of the video. Now, coordinate grids aren't a new thing. In fact, they were probably invented in ancient Greece and used to help the Greeks to try and, with their mapping, to try and locate exact locations. And of course, they would use a grid, much like a coordinate grid, to work out how far along places were, along this axis, what we now know as the x-axis, and how far up and down the map different locations were. So you could find anywhere in ancient Greece given a coordinate location. We use a similar system today called latitude and longitude to work out exact locations on the Earth, as you can see that's marked by these lines. It's slightly different from the system in ancient Greece because it recognises that the Earth is spherical, it's not flat like a coordinate grid. So let's have a look what coordinates mean. I've drawn on the coordinate 9, 16 here. This means that this point is 9 along the x-axis, so it's 9 in this direction, and it's 16 in the y-axis, so it's 16 up. And of course we always do the x-axis is always how far along first of all, and the y-axis is how far up. Now in our second coordinate point, the x-axis is actually 0, because if it's on this line, it means it's nothing in this direction and it's nothing in this direction. It's neutral, it's at 0. However, it is below the x-axis, so that means its y-coordinate, which is saying how far up or down it is actually -8. It's 8 below the line. And of course the y-coordinate is always the second one. Now, see if you can pause the video and have a go at answering those questions. Okay, so if we start off looking at point D here, well, first of all, I know its x-coordinate has to be negative because, of course, it's this side. So I have to think, how far backwards is it? Well, it's the same distance back, and I know I'm looking at one of the first coordinates, of course, because it's an x-coordinate, so I'm going to underline my two x-coordinates. Now, I know it's the same distance along as point A here, so it must be -10 as its x-coordinate. Its y-coordinate is also negative because it's below the line. And again, if I just circle, in this case, the two y-coordinates here, I have to think which one is at the same height as, and of course it's the same height as the -4, as this one here, because it's on the same line as point C. So we've got the coordinate -10, -4. Now, when I'm looking for the coordinates of E here, I know it's actually 0 along, because it isn't any distance along or back as its x-coordinate. And then for its y-coordinate, again, I'll be looking at these two y-coordinates and I'm thinking, well, which one is it kind of lined up with? Is it the same height as? And of course, it's on the same line as the y-coordinate 8 there. So E as 0, 8. Now have a look at this coordinate grid where we're given the value 16, 7. Of course, meaning 16 representing that we're 16 along the x-axis, and the 7 meaning it's 7 up the y-axis. Pause the video and see if you can find the values A and B. Now, value A is directly below coordinate 16, 7, and value B is directly along from the coordinate 16, 7. Okay, pause the video and have a go. Okay, so to work out A, well, first of all, we'd have to say how far along the axis is A, and of course it's got to be 16. It's the same distance along as this point here. And then when we're saying, well, how far up the axis is it? Well, of course, it's actually on the axis, so it must be 16, 0. And then similarly, when we're looking at B, we'd say, well, how far along the x-axis is it? Well, it isn't any distance along because it's actually on this line. so its x-coordinate must be 0. And how high up is it? Well, it must be 7 up, because it's the same height as the y-coordinate there, so 0, 7. Now, this one's your final question for today, so see if you can find the coordinates of point C, pause the video and have a go. Now, my main piece of advice here is to make sure that you don't confuse the x and the y coordinates. So I'm just going to underline in brown all of the x coordinates, and I'm going to underline in green all the y coordinates. And the other suggestion I would have is actually just to mark them on the axis. So I know this is 2 along, because it's level with that one, and then underneath here, that's about 4 along. Here we can see that the mirror is 7 along, looking at this 7 here. Then we've got point C, which we'll need to find, and then I know that this section here is 12 along. And then marking the y-axis, well, we've got values on the axis there, and then we'll go up to here, and I can see that's a height of 9, same as this one here. And then, of course, the actual value of B there is 10. So you can see it's this value here is just 1 above the 9. Now, when I'm trying to find point C, I'm actually going to do the y-coordinate first, because if I have a look at the y-coordinates, it's actually the same height as this coordinate here. It's not lined up with anything on the x-axis though, so that one will be slightly harder to work out. But I can see it's the same height as point A, which has got a y-coordinate of 9, a second coordinate of 9, so I can put that in already. Now, to work out the x-coordinate, well, I know that we've got this 4 here, and then the 7 at the mirror line, so I know that this distance is actually a distance of 3. And because it's a mirror, it will be exactly the same distance to C. So from the mirror line will be another 3. Now, the start of the mirror line is at 7, so another 3 along will get me to an x-coordinate of 10. And to check that, I can think, well, if this was 10, then 2 more along here will get me to 12. And again, if I have a look at the difference between the 2 and the 4, that's also a distance of 2. So that's right, because the distance between 2 and 4 is 2. And the distance between 10 and 12 is 2 as well. So I'm confident there on my final coordinate of 10, 9. Well done, thanks for watching, and again, we'll be back in class to learn all about coordinates.